How we doing, guys? Let's talk about common mistakes made when loading equipment on a trailer. Before I fold these ramps up, let's go over a couple things involving ramps themselves. And I'm going to tell you, I am thankful that I finally got a set of ramps like these monster ramps here. You might hear them called mega ramps, or there's other variations as well. But it's a ramp that's integrated here with a dovetail. They flip over, and then they have a solid connection to the ground with a nice stable surface underneath there. It is a nice, safe, clean, easy feeling when you're loading up or unloading. But up until last year, I was relegated to the kind of ramps where you pull them out from the side or pull them out from the back or store it up front, and you just hang them on the back side here, and then you have a nice little, 16-inch wide path for each tire to fit, and hope that thing doesn't fall off, But this is a lot better way to go. So if you can invest in something like this, if you're looking at a trailer, I would highly suggest it. There's always going to be a cost increase for something like this, but if you're doing it a lot, safety first. Something else to consider is going to be the pitch right here. It goes from a flat deck and starts tapering down, and it doesn't really matter the style of ramps or the style of deck. If it's too steep, in this location right here, if you have a belly mower on your machine or low-hanging, whatever it might be, assemblies, they could easily get hung up right at this pivot point here, as you have one axle up here, another axle down here. If you draw a straight line, this is going to be the problem area. So that is a common scenario that I, along with many other tractor owners, run into when we have something like this belly mower right here. However, if you also have a front end loader, then one of the ways that you can overcome that, say you do have too steep of an angle there, is once you get back to that pivot point there, put some down pressure on your bucket. It's actually going to raise up the tires here a little bit, but it's going to give you more clearance underneath this area right here. So you can just slide back nice and easy. As you're sliding back, there's nothing really digging in here with the bucket. So you just kind of slide back and wait till you get over that hump, that little sharp pivot point there, and you can lower the bucket back down and navigate the rest of the way off. So whenever you're loading a piece of equipment like a tractor onto a trailer, a couple things that I would always keep in mind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in low range, or the slowest range, the most amount of torque, because loading something onto or taking something off of a trailer should not be a race. So keep it in low. It'll go nice and slow that way. The other thing I'm going to do is always put it in four-wheel drive. You never know when your loads are going up a hill or down a hill, something along those lines where your weight's going to shift and maybe a front axle or a rear axle isn't making the traction that you would hope. So when you potentially have power going to the front and the rear axle, no matter if your load is heavy on the front or on the back or one or the other, you always have a better chance of maintaining traction and momentum and staying under control. So you might be able to notice here that this area is not perfectly level. There is a little bit of a slope this way, and it's also sloping uphill. As you can see, there's a whole bottom level down here where I'm located, and up front it's just a top story. So we're gaining a whole level of elevation as we go up this hill. I am really restricted for space down here. I don't have a lot of other locations around here to be able to load equipment, and so this is fortunately not that bad of a grade, but it is about as steep as I would want to go, either side to side or forward and backwards. So quite a few years ago, I was loading a tractor up on a trailer for a customer at my home, and I've got a very steep grade there. You might have seen that in some of the other videos that I have. He backed up his trailer, went in his truck right into my driveway, and I was the one who was going to be driving the tractor on. It was a little 1025 RTLB. Well, we got it up on the ramps, and the trailer and the truck are facing downhill, directly downhill. So what happened in that scenario was the fact that as I was driving the tractor up onto the ramps and then getting it onto the back tail end of the trailer itself, the weight of the tractor started pushing down on the back of the trailer, and then as it was pushing down on the back, well, guess what happened on the front side? Well, the front was lifting up, and it actually lifted up the rear axle of the truck, and so things just started to slowly slide right downhill. And fortunately, I was able to just quickly back up the tractor, get it back down onto the ramps here, and allow that rear axle of the truck to make contact with the ground again. However, that was a scary lesson. I'm fortunate that nothing bad happened, but something that you guys definitely want to avoid, loading anything on a hill. Hey, before we get too much further, if you haven't done so yet and you like what you see here, you like tractors, you like trailers, you like trucks, well then consider hitting that subscribe button underneath the video. Okay, so it's very important to make sure that your equipment is loaded on the trailer in the right spot. Simply driving it up there and wherever you want to have it and leaving it be is not a good decision to make. So you can definitely have this thing too far backwards, you can have it too far forwards. So the position of your equipment is going to depend on the overall weight distribution of what you're hauling. You know, if it's just a tractor, if you have a tractor with attachments, you know, if the tires are loaded on the backside, or if you have a backhoe hanging off, or whatever the case might be. Additionally, it could change depending on if you have a bumper pull trailer or if you have a gooseneck like this one here. So if you have your equipment loaded too far back, you know, say it's not even above these rear axles, but you have it hanging off back over this way here, well, you're really gonna take a lot of the weight off, a lot of the tongue weight off of the trailer and the truck itself up here, and you're gonna really get into some fishtail situations where it's just feeling light in the back end and you start to swerve a little bit. If you've ever gone down a highway and you've seen some other trailers just kind of really weaving back and forth like this, that's what the fishtailing concept is, and their load is just disproportionate. It's positioned in the wrong location on their trailer. But just as bad as if you have it positioned too far forward. So with that load too far forward, you're gonna have too much tongue weight on the back of your truck, on that rear axle there. This is gonna be a little bit worse if it's gonna be a bumper pull trailer versus a gooseneck like what you have here, where that load, the trailer is gonna be tied in right above that rear axle. It's gonna handle it and haul a little bit differently than a bumper pull. Man, now I tell you, there's nothing worse than trying to load onto an ice-covered trailer. It is very slick. You know, if you get some ramps and you're not in four-wheel drive, there's gonna be times when you're just sitting here spinning on your ramps, not able to climb and go all the way up. I don't care what kind of piece of equipment it is. You know, in a recent video, I asked a lot of folks about what they used to seal the decks on their trailers. Got a lot of great feedback on that. One of the solutions that I actually really liked was a customer who mentioned sort of a sandy grit, or there was another version too of like crushed walnuts or shells of some kind, where you could put it into the coating that you're going to seal your deck with and give it a little bit of grit, a little bit of surface there. I thought that was a really good idea. You know, I want to say thanks a lot to all of you guys that watch and leave comments below in past videos. You're helping out me, you're helping out a lot of other guys watching as well. Let's get into a little bit of load securement here. And all these tractors are kind of a pain in the butt to deal with. They're all different, they're all unique in tie-down points and access areas, and the same thing can be said about the trailers that you guys have. I want to make sure that you're always following your local, your state, your federal guidelines. Don't take my word for it here. This is just some hints to get you on the right track. You know, so I think the general consensus, you'll get a little bit of feedback, a little bit of pushback against this, but you want to have all four corners of your load that are tied down. And if you have additional attachments, you want to tie those down as well. Some folks are going to consider a bucket like this to be an additional attachment. And it can be very hard to find a nice tie-down point somewhere in here on the machine that can give you a good straight access point without having to bend a strap around a corner or a piece of steel, something like that. Worry about it getting frayed or damaged, that kind of thing. And so something called a lasso strap that can go right around the tire here and just come straight down to the edge is going to go a long way to helping that. One of the things I want you to keep in mind are opposing forces, okay? So when we're pulling on this side, we're also trying to pull away on that side as well. But we're going to try to pull forward at about a 45-degree angle, or as close to that as we can. And the same thing can be said on the backside. And so again, these lasso straps here are a real handy piece. And just a quick reminder too, this is going to be the outside. So imagine your ratchet is straight up like this. When you bend it, this is going to be the inside, this is the outside. So fish your strap right through here on the outside. So you just fish it right through, and then you fish it right back over top there. And again, I mentioned this before, but we're going to try to avoid having anything on the outside of the rub rails. We're going to go ahead and move this removable stake pocket and move it to another location, perhaps right here or right here. Hey, these things are super handy, by the way. These are removable. Go ahead and put them in any stake pocket. It gives you a lot more flexibility. That way you don't have to worry about anything going on the outside of the rub rail. You just put this sucker right in there, hook right into here. And that's the nice thing about these stake pocket D-rings here as well, is that they're going to be bigger than your conventional D-ring. Allows you to hook on a flat style strap like this, no problem at all. So I replace pretty much all of my straps in the spring and in the fall. You know, I do a lot of hauling and things get worn out and corroded and really bad. This one got used just near the end of the winter though, and so I am keeping it in rotation, but it's important to check your straps especially. These things will stretch. A lot of guys are going to use chains, but you want to make sure they're in good condition without any tears in them. Same thing with the rest of the strap as well. You know, you're going to see there's a working load limit on here, 3,333 pounds. Okay, so that is going to be no good if there's tears and everything else in the strap. And so I just go ahead and throw them away. And like I say, I pretty much replace just about all of my straps in the spring and in the fall, just to make sure I have good quality equipment securing my loads. And now again, every situation is different. The length of your equipment, the position, the tie down points on the machine. So this 2 Series here, this is a 2032R, does have a good a couple of spots here on the back side right next to the drawbar. Good tie down points that we're going to utilize. But what you want to do, if you can avoid it, is tying down on the 3-point hitch. You know, you can see there's some play in there. The 3-point hitch also isn't always lowered all the way to the ground. It could have some movement in it throughout time as you go down the road. You want to get something that is rigid and firm and part of the construction of the tractor itself. Don't make that mistake or you could pay for it going down the road. You can see right here, this is a nice clean line going all the way there. Nothing interfering with it. So again, I always hook on the opposite end first because you can then just pull this side out however you need to and get it as long as you need to fit. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself going back and forth a lot. Pull it through. We're going to go ahead and add one more strap to the bucket here. Make sure this is nice and secured down. One thing you don't want to do is put a strap across the cylinder, whether it's on your loader, on your backhoe, that kind of thing. So don't go putting straps up here. You're just going to ask for problems down the road, and that's going to end up causing some damage to your tractor. Now, I don't really consider this a sharp edge. Some guys will, and you can go ahead and choose to put something on here to prevent this from tearing and ripping, but do this quite a bit on this kind of an edge here without any issue. So one of the reasons I use straps is because it helps to keep my equipment protected. They're also a little bit easier to work with. I get it, some of you guys really prefer chains. That's totally fine. With straps, one of the things that you want to keep in mind is that even though this is very secure, this is very firm right now, I couldn't pull it any tighter if I wanted to. When you go down the road and you hit some bumps and you have 10, 15, 20 miles going down the highway, things could loosen up. So pull off at a rest area or a pit stop, whatever it is, really quick. Go ahead and recheck everything, make sure it's nice and secure. The last thing you want is to have to slam on the brakes going down the highway and something breaks loose. That's just a scenario that's bad for everybody. You know, I told you guys that we were done here, but I am gonna do one more thing, which is gonna put a strap over top of the hood here. I could load this backwards. I really don't like the idea of driving backwards up the ramp and then pulling forwards off. I'm just not comfortable with that. So these hoods come up from the front. One of the ways that you can make sure this hood doesn't fly up is to put a strap over it. Nothing super tight on here, just enough to prevent it from flying open. Again, you have some play in there. It's just enough to keep it nice and secure. No need to put a lot of pressure on this hood. So along those lines, when you're securing down the hood, one of the other things you want to make sure you think about, if you have a cab station, get those doors secured, get them latched, get them locked. If you've ever had to replace a cab door for any reason or a piece of glass, you know it is a pricey endeavor, so do not make that mistake. One of the last things you want to do is make sure you do a good, quick walk around here. Make sure you check out all your straps. Make sure that machine is set in park, has a parking brake set on it if applicable, and also make sure you pull the key out. If you've ever lost a key going down the highway, again, that's quite disappointing when you get to your destination there and realize you've got no way to get this machine off the trailer. Well, as always, thanks so much for taking the time to stop by, and if you haven't done so yet, consider hitting that subscribe button below. Always, make sure you check the description as well. Helpful links down there, including where you can get these Stake Pocket D-rings at. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure you check out goodworkstractors.com. I can help you out with a tractor, with an attachment, put together a whole package as well. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you soon.